Understanding students with traumatic brain injury. Who is Dylan Outlaw? Graduation, one word. One meaning? The awarding of an academic degree or diploma. Another meaning? Moving forward, just as IDEA envisions for students with disabilities and ESEA envisions for all students. For 12-year-old Dylan Outlaw, graduation has occurred 6 times. Each time it has consisted of far more than the awarding of degrees or diplomas. Think of graduation as moving from one stage of life to another, then apply that meaning to Dylan. Dylan graduated from the category of students who do not have disabilities into the category of those who do when a 2-ton refrigerator truck plowed into his family's car and caused a traumatic brain injury. Dylan was only 4 years old. He graduated again by defying the dire prognosis of physicians after the accident. They had warned Dylan's mother, Renee, and her family that he might not survive the injury. He was evaluated as having the most severe form of brain injury. Shards of bone from his eye sockets and temple were floating in his cerebral fluid near his optic nerves. To prevent them from moving, doctors placed him into an induced coma for 5 days. Seemingly miraculously, Renee attributes his recovery to prayer. Dylan's body digested the shards, yet even though his many MRI scans revealed no bone residue, the brain injury nonetheless affected him. Dylan graduated from the hospital's critical care unit to its rehabilitation unit in a near record time of 6 weeks, and then graduated from that unit to rehab at home. From there, he went to kindergarten. Through 5th grade, Dylan was classified as a student with a disability under IDEA and had the requisite IEP. When it came time for him to enter 6th grade, however, Renee attended a Partners in Policy Making training session sponsored by the state's Council on Development of Disabilities. There she learned about Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act and its requirements for reasonable accommodations. She told Dylan that for him, having those accommodations was like for another boy having a cast for a broken arm. It was no big deal to accept those benefits. Together, Renee and Dylan insisted that he receive Section 504 accommodation, that he graduate from his status as a student covered by IDEA. So instead of benefiting from the federal special education law, IDEA, Dylan now benefited from the federal anti-discrimination law, Section 504. Count up the graduations in Dylan's life, from non-disabled to having a disability, from near-death to life, from critical care to center-based rehabilitation, from center-based to home-based rehabilitation, from home to IDEA benefits, and from IDEA to Section 504's protection. No student graduates without first having been educated. Often the student learns from professionals, sometimes from family, and sometimes from peers. Dylan's teachers, in the broadest sense, were from each of those groups. His physicians saved his life. Occupational therapists, speech language therapists, and physical therapists restored most of his functional abilities. His mother, Renee, resigned from her job and stopped taking college courses to coordinate his care. At home, his father, Bob, his aunt, Laura, and his grandmother, Ruby, deliver the therapy they had learned from professionals. Dylan's older brother, also named Bob, was Dylan's model. No matter his circumstances, Dylan was determined to follow Bob into kindergarten and then through the grades ahead. Dylan's classmates in special education also played a role. However, accidentally, by having an IEP and being educated with them, Dylan learned that he could do a lot more for himself than his teachers were allowing him to do. He learned the importance of high expectations. Armed with Renee's knowledge about Section 504, Dylan decided that he would abandon his ideal rights, special education pull-out programs, and, truth be told, the labeling that came with being in special education. Dylan was bright enough to have understood something profound about himself. He wants to be more typical than not. He's determined enough to have preserved through physically challenging therapies and to have relabeled himself. And he's so value-driven that he, with his family wholly behind him, and with support from his teachers, seeks inclusion and independence. Yet he still needs therapy and accommodations. Because he injured the right side of his brain, he has functional limitations on the left side of his body. Occupational therapists target his fine motor skills. He received accommodations in taking tests and doing homework because traumatic brain injury scrambles a person's executive functions, the ability to plan and to execute a plan. Because he still has not fully recovered his strength, simply getting from one place to another in school exhausts him, often to the point that he physically cannot carry out his homework assignments, as well as his classmates who do not have disabilities are able to do, because academic demands sparked by state and district assessments increase from grade to grade. Schoolwork is becoming more difficult, despite the fact that Dylan is an excellent reader. Because all of this makes him realize that he still has disability, he is offended when students call him names. He prefers the company of compassionate peers, usually girls, and he cannot easily hide his frustration and sadness. His teacher, Patty Whipple, cautions us all, don't judge before you deal with the students. Traumatic brain injury is not a death sentence. Indeed, I'd love to teach a classmate of 1,000 Dylans.